Groundhog's Day. I did this video once and then I realized that I didn't quite explain what they were using as their kernel to base it off. Meaning, what did Bernie Sanders do? What did he say for Washington Post to run this particular story? Washington Post comes out with a story that outright just lies. At the very least, the title is a lie. Bernie Sanders does not have the power to change Medicare for all, even though Washington Post is breathlessly telling you in the title that he is. I am often stuck in these cases of wondering whether it's incompetence or whether it's intentional. And considering the organization wrote 16 negative articles about Bernie Sanders in 16 hours, I tend to think that it's intentional. Incompetence. In this case, I don't buy. The title itself, don't misunderstand me. A certain degree of incompetence is a part of it for them not knowing that what the title says Bernie Sanders cannot possibly do. So yes, in that point, yes, lie better. But intent lurking behind it. Because somebody seemed to have breathlessly wanted to claw at him. And they were looking for pretty much anything, real or imagined, to do so. And the argument that we make when we say that these guys seem to be biased and seem to be, vitriolic in their hatred towards Sanders is stuff like this. It happens so often, whether it's MSNBC or whether it's the Washington Post. I don't know if Jeff Bezos is behind the scenes. I don't know if this thing is an issue of class, where Sanders is not part of the established order, in which case this establishment newspaper doesn't necessarily like him. I don't know. But it's there, nonetheless. I don't know the motivations, but I can assume the motivations based on the actions that are taking place. And in this case, Washington Post is grossly, grotesquely guilty. Guilty in this case of essentially putting a title to an article that outright flagrantly lies on Sanders. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox After Dark. You might say Groundhog's Day if you watched my first video on this. I didn't particularly like that video. I didn't like that video as I was going through doing that video because I was thinking of too many things while I was doing it. Today, or yesterday, Bernie Sanders released a new plan to strengthen unions. His goal is to double union membership, and he's put all sorts of policies in this that are just absolutely awesome from the standpoint of labor and reinvigorating the labor sector within the country itself. As I was explaining that, at the exact same time I was explaining it, meaning as I was relaying information, I was also having a conversation with myself on this notion of worker co-ops, which essentially stuttered the way the information came out. And I also missed something that was kind of important to the story. Sanders comes out with a workplace democracy plan. The Workplace Democracy Plan includes provision to end right-to-work laws in several states, which prohibit workers from collective bargaining. The provision will also give every American union worker the right to strike and ban the replacement of striking workers, meaning scabs. It's unclear how this provision will be accomplished. The plan also includes an executive order preventing large companies from engaging in union busting practices from receiving federal funding. It's like, yeah, you're a private entity. You can do what you want. We can't force you, to attend to the union stuff. However, if you will bust those unions, you will no longer be able to suckle off the sweet federal tit. Your choice. I strongly suspect they will choose to suckle at the American tit. Corporate America and the billionaire class have been waging a 40-year war against the trade union movement in America that has caused a devastating harm to the middle class. In terms of lower wages, fewer benefits, and frozen pensions, Sanders said in a statement, that war will come to an end when I am president. Understand the union has been responsible for the 8-hour workday, for the work week in general, in and of itself, higher wages. I mean, You as an individual dealing with a company, how much you get paid is imposed upon you. You may be able to tweak it around the edges, but for the most part, that employer is imposing a wage upon you. The wage that he's imposing upon you has all sorts of things that are going into it. Some of those things is not necessarily dependent upon how much the company brings in. I hope you understand what I mean. This notion that the amount a person gets paid is entirely dependent upon the amount they bring in is nonsense. They seek to maximize their profit. They go with an idea of this is how much I want to pay this person. The catch here is the amount that they pay that person detracts or subtracts from the amount the company makes. Meaning the goal of a company is to maximize their profit. And in maximizing their profit, they need to do certain things because the company needs to function. Meaning I need to have a worker to go out and do that thing that brings back in the cash. Meaning whatever the worker does, I can sell that thing and make that cash. How much they pay the worker subtracts from the amount that they're bringing in for their cash. Meaning there's an incentive built into the process to pay that worker as little as possible so they can accrue as much as possible. It's a conflict within the relationship between the worker and the employer that is just basic within the capitalistic structure in and of itself. I wish he would have mentioned this notion of worker co-ops. It is true that unions allow that person to not be a singular entity when they're dealing with their employer. Meaning this notion of collective bargaining. All of us are coming together in order to fight for our wages and work in the best interest of us. That employer is always going to work in the best interest of himself and his class. And in this case, we can come together and do the same. There's always a conflict between that though. The worker co-op tries to eliminate the conflict by getting rid of the employer. You don't need them. Ultimately, what you need are the workers to do the job. Those workers have all the sense of the world in order to be able to govern the company. You don't need the corporate class. People thought they needed kings and queens. They did not. They got along fine when they left. I make the point that the same thing is true for the capitalist class. So he released that. That's a big deal. There's nothing like that we've seen where the president comes and says, we're going to strengthen unions in this country. We're going to expand unions in this country. Haven't seen that in a very long time, at least not in my lifetime. So that's big news. So what story do you think the Washington Post runs? What story? What story? Guess. Guess. Give me your best guess. Washington Post runs this. Senator Bernie Sanders changes Medicare for All plan in the face of opposition by organized labor. Sanders does not have the power to do what they are saying that Sanders is doing. He doesn't have the power. The headline is false. Sanders has not changed Medicare for All because Sanders can't change Medicare for All. It is a legal document. He is a senator. He, with several co-sponsors, wrote this document. He doesn't have the power to just unilaterally go and say, all right, I'm going to change this now. Medicare for All hasn't changed. Hasn't changed. This headline is dramatically false on its face. Just logically false. Sarah Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, a union woman, headline is false. And by the way, there's no link to this article. I had to go find the article, but there's no link to this article. And it's suspected that she probably didn't even read the article, because if she did read the article, she would understand what Washington Post is using, and it is utterly ludicrous in order to come up with this assessment. So, right here. What they're saying, Sanders is going to mandate that all companies with existing union-negotiated healthcare plans submit to new negotiations under the National Labor Relations Board watch, with any savings on healthcare funneled into other benefits, such as higher pay. That's not a change in Medicare for All. That's not a change in Medicare for All. Labor officials had expressed concern that Sanders' proposed system would hurt pre-negotiated benefits. Furthermore, the plan will ensure that union-sponsored clinics and other providers are integrated within the Medicare for All system and kept available for members. The plan posted on its website the details. Unions will still be able to negotiate for and provide wraparound services and other coverage not duplicative of the benefits established under Medicare for All. How is that a change to Medicare for All? Let me read this. Because Fox News is getting their news from Washington Post, meaning Fox News is running this article title because of the Washington Post ludicrous article title. And even in Fox News's article, right here, unions will still be able to negotiate for provide wraparound services and other coverage not duplicative of the benefits established under Medicare for All. There hasn't been any change to Medicare for All, even though they're talking about it as if it has. Washington Post got it wrong. And Fox News apparently just read the title, just also got it wrong. They're saying adjusted plan. There's been no adjusted plan. Will mandate companies with existing union negotiated healthcare plans submit to new negotiations under the National Labor Board Relations Watch, with any savings on healthcare funneled into other benefits such as higher pay. You negotiated for your healthcare plan. Great. We need to have new negotiations because we're going to have Medicare for All, and Medicare for All may cover a lot of the stuff that you guys negotiated for. So any additional savings that, or any additional benefits, the money from that will be put into things like higher pay. Medicare for All is not changing. Medicare for All is what Medicare for All is. It's a bill. It's a text document in Congress, a legal document. It's not changing. Sanders is not changing. What he is saying, however, that from a policy position, that anyone that has already had negotiated healthcare plans, you have new negotiations for those plans because there's no point in duplicating something that Medicare for All already has. Right here. The plan, unions will still be able to negotiate and provide wraparound services and other coverage not duplicative of benefits established under Medicare for All. Where's the change? Where's the change? Are you talking about a change in perspective? Because nothing has changed in the bill. Well, the Sanders says, okay, well, you guys are complaining about the policies at this point. Fair enough. What we can do is, since you guys already have medical coverage, fair enough. We have new negotiations. And the savings, the benefits that you guys would have received gets put into things like higher pay. Nothing in this process that I've said has changed Medicare for All. I have talked about policy from the standpoint of labor unions and the negotiations that take place with unions. But Medicare for All hasn't been touched. I'm reading this to you because I find this to be astonishing. And Fox News is entirely going off of the fake news from Washington Post. And yet, when you read the document, meaning what they're saying here, let me blow this up. When you read it, the adjusted plan would mandate that companies with existing union healthcare plans submit to new negotiations under the National Relations Board Watch, with any savings on healthcare funneled into other benefits such as higher pay. That's not a change to Medicare for All. You negotiated a contract for healthcare. Great. You don't need that anymore because you have Medicare for All. And all of that stuff that you negotiated for is covered under Medicare for All. So from a policy position, fair enough, you're complaining about it, so let's do something about it. Let's talk about it. What we can do is we can say whatever you were going to save on healthcare, meaning whatever benefits that you were going to get from your healthcare plan that you're now getting under Medicare for All, let's dump that into your higher wages or other benefits right here. The plan will ensure that union-sponsored clinics and other providers integrated within the Medicare for All system. Medicare for All hasn't changed. Those things are being integrated into Medicare for All, not the other way around, and kept available for members. The plan posted as well. Unions will still be able to negotiate and provide wraparound services and other coverage not duplicative of the benefits established under Medicare for All. Look, I am sorry I am belaboring this point. I'm sorry. I just want to put a nail in it so you know that what Washington Post has just put here is ludicrous. It's ludicrous on its face because Sanders by himself cannot unilaterally change the legal document of Medicare for All. There's that. But on the second point, when you read it, you get how insane this article is. Because nothing in the article gets across anything changing in Medicare for All. Nothing. Nothing at all. And by the way, I'm not put off if there were changes to Medicare for All. I have no expectation that people write policy and the policy is just going to be perfect the first time out. How often do you do something that's perfect the first time out? Most things take tweaks and, managing. The problem here is, main problem, is that if Medicare for All gets passed, they're not going to get a second bite at the apple per se. Republicans are going to attack it relentlessly, and Democrats even are going to attack it relentlessly, just like they're doing now. Kamala Harris's communication director is the one that put this out. Her communications director most likely didn't even read the article because most people don't read the title. Beyond the title of the articles. She was looking for something to smear Sanders with because they have a quote-unquote Medicare for All plan that they're calling Medicare for All that is in no way Medicare for All. They have something else. They should call it something else. They're lying to their audience. Subterfuge. They want to be able to use the label Medicare for All without actually doing Medicare for All. God, I would love a jelly donut, but I don't want the calories from this jelly donut. Meaning, you have to pick a side. Medicare for All will adversely affect the people who are putting money in your pocket. Ergo, you don't want to go with this notion of Medicare for All. And you believe that if you give a weaker, crummier version of some healthcare plan as opposed to Medicare for All, that at the very least those people will be so terrified by Sanders that they will put their money in your good hands. It's good hands for them. 10 years for a plan is nonsense. That's not even being serious. But that said, Washington Post lies. Labor woman Sarah Nielsen corrects that lie. And it wasn't just her. There were additional people who were going after that, making the point that this is nonsense. Sarah Nielsen made the point, read the article. The headline is false. And then there's another guy who was attacking this very particular point using this article to make that point right here. Allow me to amend. The story is factually wrong throughout. It's just false that Medicare for All has changed. It's policy illiterate. It's policy illiterate. Right here. Here's another one. This is the headline from this Washington Post article is 100% wrong. Know how I know? Medicare for All is a Senate bill with exact text and co-sponsors. The text hasn't changed. The text hasn't changed. And I want to repeat this. Sanders released a plan that is sweeping from the standpoint of labor in this country. For the first time in my lifetime, first anybody's lifetime, that we're, that's under my voice. And with all the things in the world that the Washington Post could report, for all the things in the world that the Washington Post could say, for all of the perspectives that you could take of the labor plan, the story that they chose to run with is Senator Bernie Sanders changes Medicare for All in the face of opposition to organized labor. A title, by the way, that is entirely, ludicrously, shamefully, desperately, hysterically false. They just lied. An organization that is supposed to give you true information to the degree that it could be true, just shamelessly, on your pages, to their audience, lied. Washington Post. Like, share, subscribe. And let me make sure. Okay. If you enjoy the content, like, share, subscribe. I think so. Shameful.